Welcome to the SImple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 87th episode of the SImple Sophisticate. Now, for many of us, we have a big holiday coming up this Sunday. It is Valentine's Day. And so, as the theme of February is about strengthening our social well-being, I couldn't help but talk about love. And so today's episode is titled Romantic Love. What is it and how to maintain it? Now, I am of the faction that believes that February 14th is just a reminder of what we should be doing the other 364 days of the year. And this year it's 365 days because we have a leap year, but you get the idea. It's never a bad thing to celebrate love. And so I don't poo-poo Valentine's Day. I think it's a fantastic idea, but we all need to keep in mind that there are so many different days, so many other ways that we can express love to those that are close to us. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. What is romantic love and how do we maintain it? Today's inspiration comes from a New York Times bestselling author, Gary Chapman. And many of you may have heard of him as he wrote the ubiquitously talked about 5 Languages of Love book. And I highly, highly recommend you picking this up, whether you're in a relationship or not. This has everything to do with simply how we communicate with others effectively. And yes, it can be about romantic love, but it can be with how we communicate with our children, with our family members, with our colleagues, with people in our neighborhood. And so I will provide a link on today's show notes for that. But let's get started. I want to begin with a quote from Gary Chapman and his book, The 5 Languages of Love. And it states, "Love is the most important word in the English language and the most confusing." If you have ever taken a foreign language class, attempting to learn a language that is not your native tongue, perhaps you have had a similar experience to mine. You want to communicate. You know what you want to say in your native tongue, but you don't know how to accurately convey it in this new medium, which is your new language. The frustration level at this point can be exasperating. However, the only solution is to continue to practice, continue to attentively listen, and with patience and diligence, this new language will be learned. In Gary Chapman's 1995 New York Times #1 bestseller, The 5 Love Languages, he equates the learning of a foreign language to discovering the love language of your partner. While understanding how we best receive love, identifying the love language that communicates love to us when received, knowing our partner's love language is akin to learning a foreign language, especially when their foreign language is different than ours. And most of the time, it usually is. Here's a quote from the book. "If we speak only our primary language and encounter someone else who speaks only his or her primary language, which is different from ours, our communication will be limited. We can communicate, but it's awkward. If we are to communicate effectively across cultural lines, we must learn the language of those with whom we wish to communicate." But I'm getting ahead of myself. How do we know if we're involved with someone whom we truly love and aren't merely in love with during this endorphined state of euphoria which clouds our rational mind? So I want to first begin by answering that question. What is romantic love? And making sure we truly understand when we should invest. And then we'll get to those 5 languages. Chapman reminds us that late psychologist Dr. Dorothy Tenov found after much research and study, the infinite feeling of being in love lasts about 2 years. And so the question many of us want to know is, how can I ensure that when I descend from this blissful state, I will still want to be in a relationship with this person? It's a great question. And it's a worthwhile question that we need to ask. And while I don't suppose to have the concrete answers to this question, I did come across 3 questions proposed by 2 of my favorite life advice and inspirational bloggers, Mark and Angel, that I found to be quite helpful. And I'll provide a link to that particular post on today's show notes. If you can answer yes to each of the following questions, it is highly probable that you have found yourself, as they say, a life partner worth devoting yourself to. What are those 3 questions? Here you go. Number 1, does he or she treat you with respect at all times? Number 2, if she or he remains the exact same person 10 years from now that they are today, would you still want to be in a relationship with them? And number 3, does he or she inspire you to be a better human being? If you can answer yes to all 3 of those, the likelihood that you are involved with someone who can be a life partner is probably yes. Obviously, there are so many other variables, but those are huge questions and they encompass so much. And so I felt that these were 3 that I wanted to share with you. Again, I'll provide a link to Mark and Angel's post that talks about these in today's show notes. For the purposes of today's episode, let's assume that you have answered yes to each of these 3 questions without hesitation, but with thoughtful contemplation. Let's now move to the 5 love languages. First, let me begin by recommending that you pick up his book. I will say that again. I will say it again and again and again. I couldn't believe I haven't had this book in my library all these years. I've heard it mentioned. I've heard it talked about. And yeah, you hear these, different people communicate different ways. But to actually read it, for me anyway, made tremendous sense. And it really spoke to me, not only what I'm looking for, but also it puts that onus on me that I need to communicate clearly. I need to know who I am, as we always talk about here on this podcast and on the blog. I need to know who I am. I need to know how I communicate love and how I best receive love from someone so that then I can communicate that to someone. So I do have to take some responsibility. But then it's about knowing how to observe that in others. All right. So it's a short, compact book, and it will be a valuable resource to have on hand. So again, I'll provide a link to that on the show notes. What I'm going to do in this post, though, is simply share an overview of the 5 love languages, which is something that can be found in numerous other sites around the web. This is not something that's going to be new, but if you haven't heard of it, this will be a great overview of what these are, and then you'll want to potentially buy that book or check it out at the library, right? The one thing that is additionally helpful is his quiz at the end of the book, which will help you determine what exactly your primary love language is. While most of us probably have an inkling of what ours might be, sometimes even we aren't absolutely accurate. One quick check that you can do to help garner evidence of what your primary love language is to recollect moments in which you were most upset with loved ones regarding how they did or didn't treat you. Often we become most injured when the language that speaks loudest to us isn't observed. So that's something to kind of ponder. When did I feel the most hurt? And what was it that didn't happen that if it had happened, it would have meant the world? That might be one of your primary love languages. One of the most significant takeaways after reading Chapman's book was the aha moment that what did or didn't work in past relationships when it comes to love languages may work well or even wonderfully in the next relationship. Why? It is all about getting to know and learning how to communicate effectively in your partner's love language. And as Gail Cornwall, contributor to the Washington Post, pointed out in an article that just was posted last month, that is loving well. When you know how your partner receives love, how they're going to receive love from you and truly believe that you mean it, then you've reached that place that you may not have known how to get to had you done it haphazardly. So loving well involves paying attention, getting to know, investing, and really listening and observing who your partner is. And that person is going to be different from the person you were with in your previous relationship. So don't think, it worked in that relationship. Why isn't it working in this relationship? different people. And I know it's a simple aha. I know we know this, but sometimes we forget those basics. So since each person's love language is different, this means that we have to go into relationships without assumptions and rather enter with curiosity and willingness to get to know the person. And yes, this means it will take time. So have patience as you get to know each other. All right, let's get to those 5 love languages as summarized from Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages. All right, the first one is words of affirmation, defined as, quote, using words to build up as a way to express love. Words of affirmation can be shared in a couple of different ways, such as verbal compliments or words of appreciation, words of encouragement, or as Chapman reminds, encourage means to inspire courage, as well kind words said in a tone that is sincere, not biting or sarcastic, and then choose to make requests rather than demands. After all, you guys are equals. One is not the leader and the other the follower. One is not the parent and the other the child. Make requests rather than demands. The one that really sunk in for me, and maybe it's because of my personality, well, I know it's because of my personality, but also maybe my profession, and I'm really sensitive to this, is tone. I really pick up on tone of how something's said, sincerely or superficially, sarcastically, as I said, or abruptly. It really sings to me. And now that may not sing to a lot of other people for whatever reason, but that's what I noticed for myself. And maybe you're noticing something that I just shared that rings true for you as well. So number 1 is words of affirmation. Number 2 is quality time, defined as, quote, giving someone your undivided attention. There are actually a couple of ways to extend quality time to our loved one. First of all, our attention must be focused on our loved one. So we must not only be in proximity with them, but actually be engaged with them. Ways to share quality time could be participating in an activity in which both participants, you and your loved one, want to engage in, and doing so together. Similarly, quality conversation, which is defined as, quote, sympathetic dialogue where 2 individuals are sharing their experiences, thoughts, and feelings and desires in a friendly, uninterrupted context. So quality time doesn't mean that you have to be sitting down having a conversation. Maybe you're an active couple and you like to go out and do things, and that is a huge bonding time for you guys. So go do quality activities together. So there are different ways to have quality time. Number 3 is receiving gifts. Defined as precisely what it sounds, giving a gift you can hold in your hand and say, look, he or she was thinking of me, or he or she remembered me. However, the gift of one's presence also falls into this category. The key, as it is with all of these, is to communicate with your loved one and determine what they need and what will make them feel loved. So number 3 is receiving gifts. And number 4 is acts of service, defined as doing things you know your spouse or loved one would like you to do. The list of these acts of service will be different for each individual, and this is why taking the time to truly get to know someone, being observant and listening to their needs is crucial. Number 5, last but not least, is physical touch. Expressing love through physical touch may sound obvious, but as Chapman points out, there are 2 types of physical touch: explicit love and implicit love. Explicit love requires more time than implicit love, but neither is more powerful depending upon your partner's love language. And he defines and goes into specifically what explicit and implicit love. And so again, I encourage you to go to the book, but our entire body, as we know, has touch receptors, as he calls them. We have nerves all over our body, as we know, but your loved one has a unique map of what communicates your affection to them. Take the time to find out. So number 5 is physical touch. In a nutshell, the 5 love languages we just talked about, as Chapman defines, have many different dialects within them. So while you have 5, you also have many different varieties of those within them. And that, again, is going to require time and investment and observation. The key is taking that time to communicate, listening fully, and investing in your relationship if indeed your answer is yes to those initial 3 questions I mentioned at the top of the episode. One thought I want to leave with you that I quickly highlighted in Chapman's book is a simple reminder about how we truly are the navigators of our ship when it comes to whether or not we want to be in a relationship and who we choose, should they choose us, to be in a relationship with. Love is a choice, and it cannot be coerced. I'm going to say that again. Love is a choice, and it cannot be coerced. Back to the idea of being in love versus finding real love. Feeling in love is not a bad thing. I don't want anyone to think that being in love is a bad thing. It's a fantastic and wonderful and amazing experience that offers moments that emerge that will not soon be forgotten. The key is to understand what this feeling is and not become blind to the truth of who the person actually is that you think you're in love with. Know why you're feeling this euphoric, blissful state. Know why. Enjoy it, revel in it, but understand that it's not permanent. Understand it's not permanent. So what is real love, you may be wondering? Chapman explains it in this quote. It is a love that unites reason and emotion. It involves an act of the will and requires discipline, and it recognizes the need for personal growth. Our most basic emotional need is not to fall in love, but to be genuinely loved by another, to know a love that grows out of reason and choice, not instinct. I need to be loved by someone who chooses to love me, who sees in me something worth loving. End quote. In other words, real love is a choice. Not only do we expend energy to live the life of our dreams, but we would then choose to expend energy to benefit the one we are in a relationship with. An equal partnership where both people feel loved, secure, and valued. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I hope whether you've read his book or not, perhaps it's going to serve as a reminder. Perhaps you're in a different place to really absorb a different fact that you hadn't seen before. Whatever it is, I hope there was some insight or some aha moments. And I will provide all the links to the books and to the quotes and to the blog posts that I mentioned throughout this episode. So feel free to go to the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast87 for all those links. And I will also provide a handful of links from my archives on this topic, love and relationships and how to make someone feel special, and also a link to all the relationship posts that you can find in the archives at the Simply Luxurious Life blog. Now, this week's Petit Plaisir is something that I have been patiently waiting to share with readers who have expressed an interest in how to enjoy all things simply luxurious. Do stay tuned. I'll be right back. This week's Petit Plaisir is the Simply Luxurious app is now finally available for Android users. It has been available for iTunes users or Apple users for over a year and a half. And since that moment, that big reveal last September, I believe it was, readers immediately said, when is it going to be available for Android users? And I, at that time, didn't know. Number one, I didn't know how to do it. And for the last 6 months, I have been having someone working on this process, and I apologize that it's taken so long, but it is finally available, and it is free on iTunes and on Google Play. This app is absolutely free. We've added some enhancements, and it is one of those sources. One of my good friends actually, she told me over the holidays, she's like, that's how I read and stay up on what's going on the Simply Luxurious Life brand. Is I simply just look at your app. I don't go to the computer. I don't go to my browser. I simply look at your app, and it keeps her up to date on everything from the latest blog posts to the latest Instagram post, my Twitter feed, which is where I share a ton of articles that I find inspiring and interesting. Every week, every couple of days a week, I will share a ton of articles that from all different areas. It could be entertainment, but it also could be productivity and business and self-help and meditation and recipes from all my favorite food magazines. So that's a place to stay up on top of those kind of things that are beyond the Simple Luxurious Life website. But you can also, since we're listening to this on the podcast today, listen directly to the episodes of the SImple Sophisticate. You do not need a podcast app anymore. You can listen directly to it right from this app, put in your headphones, and go about whatever you're doing. It is that simple, and it's free. So I hope if it's something that if you're someone who uses apps and likes to be on the go and don't have to fiddle around getting on the internet browser, this will be of great use to you, and you can stay up on all things Simply Luxurious. 3 things I want to note. You can comment directly on the app. So if you have thoughts or ideas you want to share your experience, you can comment directly on the app. You do not have to go to the blog to do that. 2, you can share to your favorite social media source directly from the app as well. Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, all 3 of those are available. And 3, if you love it, rate and review it. And what I mean by that is if you love the app and you enjoyed it, please do write a review. It can be as simple as just rating it on the 5-star scale. I'll provide a link to share those reviews directly on today's episode, as well as instructions on how to go about leaving a review if you're not too sure. But what that does is simply encourages potential users to download it and offers them insight into how to use and enjoy the app to its fullest possibility. All right. So while that was a bit of business, it's also something that you guys have been patiently waiting for. I want to thank you for your patience, and I'm so excited that it's finally available. All the links to where to download, how to leave a review, and what it entails are on today's show notes, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast87. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope you have a wonderful week and Valentine's Day with whomever you share it with. I'll be sharing it with my pups, Oscar and Norman, and keeping it pretty simply luxurious. I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you for tuning in to the SImple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, stop by the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up the book, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonjour!